We're here at the Houston Latino Film Festival. I'm here with one of the directors of the strike, Joebill Munoz. And Joebill, thanks for coming to the festival.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the beginnings of this idea with the film?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having us. It's really nice to bring the film home to Houston. It means a lot. Just like to bring this film to the community I was raised in is really special for me personally. The origin story of the film. My co-director Lucas, who's off camera, was kind of following the story for a long time, going back 10 years before we ever got together and picked up a camera, following a lot of the family members who are involved in the movement, who were sort of the voices for their loved ones incarcerated. Fast forward to about 2018, 2019, Lucas and I are both in graduate school in the documentary film program at UC Berkeley. And we kind of just worked on each other's kind of student films and kind of just formed this kind of creative collaboration. Upon graduating, decided to kind of start making this film. And at first, it was just kind of an idea, kind of a kernel. It was a really compelling story, really interesting story. Lucas had compiled all this footage and reporting and met all these folks, these family members. And then it was also around that time that a lot of the main central protagonists of the film started being released from prison. And it was kind of then that we kind of hopped in Lucas's car, drove down to Los Angeles from Oakland, and started meeting these guys. And one thing led to another, and we were interviewing them for 8-9 hour stretches because the story was so big and vast and important, and there was so much to say. And these guys are such incredible people and speakers, and it was kind of at that moment that an idea turns into a film and then into a reality. But it took many years. It took about 5 years of us kind of working on it for it to kind of finally come to fruition. But
Okay. And is that something, the idea of knowing or having in your family people who are in this situation in the prison system and maybe not necessarily been a part of this moment, but is that anything that you had a sort of a connection to, not necessarily a personal connection, but a deeper interest in before making the film?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, coming from a mixed status immigrant community here in Texas, where the sort of criminal justice system or criminal legal system is infamously sharp and brutal and harsh. Knew I was interested. I wouldn't say I was inclined towards caring about this, and also just as a person who cares about human rights and about people being treated fairly. But yeah, I would say that I was kind of naturally inclined to the story, but at the same time, I don't want to say that that means that I necessarily knew what it took to tell the story, because it's a really complicated story and involves a lot of people with individual experiences. I don't know what it's like to be in solitary confinement for decades at a time, or to support a loved one going through that. It was really through listening to the folks who did have that experience that I would say kind of the interests and the inclination grew into a passion that kind of propelled the film forward. But yeah, I mean, it was shocking nonetheless, despite this being something that I was inclined to care about and that it was of interest. It was shocking nonetheless to learn about the way in which California's system of solitary confinement worked and operated, and how it was developed over time, and sort of the origin story. I mean, at every turn, um, it became more and more interesting, and just the sort of picture grew even more detailed and bigger and richer. And Yeah, it was just kind of for as a filmmaker, as a documentary filmmaker specifically, it was just something that you could just fall into and really kind of go into a deep dive with.
Okay, okay. And is that the for an audience to watch this film and to see some of the things that it reveals about, say, the California criminal justice system, or the way some of the prisons handled this, right? And I think it's eye-opening for an audience to watch it. And I'm curious, like, how much, and you kind of touched on it a second ago, how much of a shock was it for you personally, kind of coming to this material?
Yeah, no, I mean, um, it was, I mean, it's shocking to know that people are in solitary confinement for decades, that people can survive it, that people did survive it. But also, just the way in which it was a legal process, sort of a bureaucratic process that involved many people at many different levels of government, um, to sort of move it through, and that over time, there were all these sort of political movements in California from uh, Ronald Reagan's time as governor to the present day. It was interesting learning about that. And also just the way in which the the way in which something like this is kind of codified over time and just becomes normal. I think that normalcy is just as shocking as
How
the
systemic,
yeah,
deep rooted it becomes,
right,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. And, at the same time, it was also shocking and inspiring to just meet a lot of these guys who went through it and what they did to sort of turn the course of history. That was just as surprising as anything else, if not more so, just to know that, folks used their experience and turned it into power.
How did that work out in terms of reaching out and connecting with a lot of the men that are in the film, or with their families, and sort of getting them to be on board with this, understanding the idea of the film, and becoming a real element, a crucial element of the film?
Right. Yeah, that's where I have to definitely give a lot of credit to Dolores Canales, who's in the film, who's um, has her own experience with solitary confinement with the prison system. But she's, although she probably wouldn't describe herself as this, but she's a real leader in the movement, and she um, just like knows everybody, right? She probably has your phone number. I wouldn't be surprised. And so it was really through her, through Lucas's relationships from years ago, that we met a lot of folks, but more importantly, got their trust, and just kind of went from there.
Something in the film that is notable to me watching it, or to any viewer, is there are moments, there are images, footage that seems like it would be kind of hard or impossible to get. You've got moments where you've got prisoners talking to, like, the heads of the prison system, and how did that process come about? Like, getting access to that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a range of different materials in the film. From these kind of primary interviews with a lot of the guys who experienced firsthand, uh, years of solitary confinement at Pelican Bay or inside the California prison system, and just finding those folks alone was hard because it's not like there's a database for that somewhere. It's not honestly, it's not like the prison system itself keeps up with that. Every single person who spoke to us, who decided to speak with us, and who we connected with, I'm extremely grateful for. But then, yes, we also interviewed folks from within the prison system and got them to talk to us. Years ago, I worked at this organization called the Center for Investigative Reporting. They produce this podcast called Reveal, and I met this journalist, Michael Montgomery, who for years had followed this story and done some work for PBS about it. and told him about this, and he was really excited, wanted to help. Michael's a producer on the film, and he had a lot of those connections with folks within the system, folks who had a complicated relationship, who one man helped build the system, but at the same time, at a certain point, changed his mind, and that story is told in the film. um, and then in terms of finding some of the footage we found, there was, I think what you're probably most referring to is this confidential footage that's in the film that is that's our secret recordings of some of the leaders of the hunger strike and some high-ranking uh, prison officials from Sacramento, and they were kind of negotiating. The premises they're negotiating an end to these protests, and that I can't specifically say where it came from. Fell off the back of a truck, kind of thing. But for documentary filmmaker, it's like gold. It really opens up the entire story and lets you really tell the story from the footage itself and not vice versa, which is
It's
the way
really
you wanna do it.
compelling. I mean,
Yeah.
just to see a moment like that, and several moments in the film, of course, but there's so much that's happening
Yeah.
in that moment, even unsaid things.
Right.
And I think it speaks to a lot of what is a part of the story. But speaking to the history of it and the way the prisoners had to unite, I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
What did you find to be a challenge in terms of dealing with maybe like state officials or the prison system? Was there any like sort of coordination or interaction with that?
Well, it's always hard to make a film about a place that the public is not allowed to enter. And especially some place like Pelican Bay, that's the highest security state prison that you can think of. So yeah, it was hard to get access. It was many years, many years, and like I said, working with Michael Montgomery, who had a lot of those relationships, who had already for decades built those relationships, was really helpful. But yeah, I think that as a journalist, as a documentary filmmaker, you always want to give people a chance to tell their story, and in service of what the audience wants, in service of telling the whole picture. So I think it was we were excited to kind of sit across the table from these guys who built this system, because that's just as important. We felt just as an important story to tell is who built this and why. This is largely a faceless bureaucracy made up of kind of faceless people, and so to put a face and a name to a system is a really powerful thing, and we hope that we were able to do that.
Yeah, no, it's very, like I said, it's very compelling to see the dynamic between, let's say, the side of the prisoners and their stories, and then the people who were involved with making this a story.
Right.
So in terms of once the film, you've kind of got it in the can or got it in a shape that you think is the film, how is either the reception, or have you had interaction with other prisoners or seen reacting to this story on film in this way?
Oh man, yeah, that's a really it's been a whirlwind since we released the film last April. We had our premiere in Toronto, and then since then, this is our 60 plus screening, in-person screening. The film is now on PBS. It got picked up by Independent Lens, which means that it's broadcasting in households across the country, but also because it's public television inside prisons. So guys on the inside are able to watch it, and we've been hearing back stories from people through the community about folks gathering in day rooms to watch the film together, hearing stories from people telling us how people have reacted. You never know how a film is going to be received. You never, you're always thinking, is anyone going to watch it? Is it just going to be like my 5 friends and my parents? But it's been more than we could have asked for, the way that the community has embraced the film and gathered all these communities together to watch the film, all these screenings that we've been having. We have, like I said, this is our 60 plus screening, and we've got 30 more coming up And it's been great, and it's also been great um, seeing a lot of our screenings that we have where we're there in person, or some of the folks from the film are there in person, some of the solitary survivors. um, it feels like more than just a film screening. It's a community gathering. It's a place for people to be honored, for communities themselves to honor themselves and respect the work they've done. I can't tell you how many times we've done a screening where somebody has gotten up in the audience and said, my dad was in Pelican Bay, my uncle was in Pelican Bay, or I was in Pelican Bay, and I was a part of this. Just a one quick aside was, somebody who um, was, indirectly impacted by the hunger strikes, because after the hunger strikes, a lot of reforms happened, a lot of educational programming was allowed, and one guy um, was able to start enrolling in college courses, and then through that got released, and then was able to enroll into a university in Southern California um, afterwards. And he came to our screening at that university, and he was like, I wouldn't be here in college if it wasn't for the hunger strikes, if it wasn't for what happened. And that's happened like numerous times. So it's just been amazing to learn all these little stories, but also I think that the film is kind of playing a role in kind of connecting these maybe sort of tangentially related people or ideas or consequences. And there's a kind of real, just kind of community building that it's serving, which is, who would have thought years ago when we were driving from Oakland to California to Los Angeles up and down the coast that this would be where we're at. And then the last thing I'll say is we screened the film inside San Quentin inside San Quentin State Prison. They held their first ever film festival, and it was just a kind of mind blowing experience to go inside and screen the film, where a lot of the guys were in solitary confinement. They were at Pelican Bay. They participated in the hunger strike, which was, viewed and still is viewed. I mean, it was a violation of rules to go on a protest. And then to see now these guys proud of the work that they did, proud of what they were able to accomplish, giving people their freedom back, was really awesome, was really amazing. It was when we took Jack Morris, who's in the film, who's a solitary survivor, we took him with us inside. And it was just amazing the way he was embraced, the way folks were really thankful to him, this sort of younger generation of folks who now kind of see a pathway for the rest of their lives. And since then, Dolores has been helping get the film inside juvenile detention centers as well, using the film as a tool. So yeah, I mean, the film is kind of having this life now.
It's become its own thing.
It's become its own thing. It's gone to college. It's moving in. It's got a car. Yeah, it's great.
Wow. Well, that's great. It's an excellent film. You're going to be here in the screening or do a Q&A after the screening. So I'm sure the audience will have some interesting questions for you also. It's great to have you here at the festival. I appreciate you coming, sitting down with us for a little bit. And anything else you'd like to say about where somebody might be able to find out more? I know you said it's available on PBS, but if they're interested in maybe being a part of this or understanding more about this story.
Yeah, the first place to go to is our website, thestrikefilm.com. We have more information about kind of how to plug into various different places, but we also have our Instagram where we post about like upcoming screenings, upcoming ways. We're still on tour ourselves, taking the film, going with the film and screening it in different places. But as I said, it's also on PBS. It's on Independent Lens. It's broadcasting. You just kind of have to check your local listings. It's also on YouTube. PBS now, Independent Lens puts its films on YouTube, which is awesome. The easiest kind of way to watch something, right? My family won't watch anything of mine unless it's on YouTube. So that's probably, if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in inviting us because you're a part of a community organization, or you're a part of a church group, whatever it might be, a school, we're more than happy to kind of help coordinate that. You can find out how to do that on our website.
All right, great.
Thank you.
It was great to talk to you.
Likewise, man.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.